Welcome to the Connection Podcast. I am Lauren Dry, also known as the Connection Catalyst. Connection and this podcast for me is personal. As a driven professional, I found myself an expert in all things work and business, but it was at home that I really needed clarity and ease. After finally finding it one marriage breakdown and one marriage reset later, and finally discovering what really works to have connection in modern relationships, using science, simplicity, and soul, our signature program, Rise into Regulation, was born. That's giving so many others in modern, driven relationships back clarity and ease for good. On the podcast today, we're going to dive deep together on all things relationships, business, identity, and leadership. And clarity and ease is at the heart of it all. And we are so happy to be with you so that you can have what you need in connection, mind, body, and soul too. Welcome back. Today, I am joined by Gaylen Wilson, certified relationship coach, author and co-founder of the Monument Method with his wife, Heather. And for the last 5.5 years, Gaylen has helped 60,000 men and women navigate some of the most intimate but important challenges in a relationship, covering everything from erectile dysfunction to shame, masculinity, desire, and relationship disconnection. Gaylen's work focuses on how couples can stop treating each other like the enemy, regulate together under pressure, and become a source of safety rather than stress inside the relationship. Today, we're going to get into what men often hide from their partners when shame shows up, and what actually helps versus what can hinder. Welcome, Gaylen. I am so happy to be with you
It's
here.
my pleasure to be here, Lauren. I'm so honored to be on your show.
Oh, welcome. I'd love to hear a little bit about you in your own words for the audience
Okay.
and why you think that this is the episode that they've been waiting to hear.
Okay. Well, I've led a very interesting life. I've had to rebuild myself 5 or 6 times in life. And I've been with Heather 23 and a half years, almost 24 in September. And we have an amazing relationship. And it seems like everything I've done in my life has led me to this spot to be able to show couples not only how to stop conflict almost instantly, but then turn their relationships into a source of refuge rather than another battlefield in their life.
What an accomplishment for being together for so long. And I'm sure that we're going to hear a lot of your wisdom making it through so many different life events together. I know that this episode is going to resonate for so many women and men who are maybe secretly listening, waiting to hear that moment where perhaps they're realizing that they're not alone in some of the most important and intimate challenges in a
Mhm.
relationship. So I'm curious, what were some of the first moments where you had an understanding of a man, what intimacy meant and how that related to being a man and showing up as a man? Was there a conversation or a moment in time where you realized you had this picture of how intimacy relates to masculinity?
I would say, as a young man, I was married at 20 and had 4 kids by the time I was 26. And so my first wife and I were very active, very intimate, and she was a wonderful wife. I had some disasters in my life early on that led to alcoholism. And unfortunately, between the alcoholism and the repeated disasters, that relationship ended. I would say it wasn't any particular one moment. I've been always interested in being close and intimate with my wife. And then I met Heather in the fall of 2002. I'd been studying tantric sex. And one of the tenets of tantric sex is eye gazing. And so we began our relationship with a lot of eye gazing, a lot of deep connection and intimacy. Basically, the first 12 years of our marriage, we never left the romance phase because we had developed such a connection, and that connection never let us slip out of to where a lot of couples would end up getting further and further away as they go. And that just never really happened to us.
Did you used to think that it was so important as a man to have physical intimacy in order for that to be a part of your identity?
It's kind of interesting because I don't consider myself a typical man. I've always felt that intimacy wasn't just about raw sex.
Where did you get that idea from?
When I was 16 years old, I bought a book. I was in a used bookstore and I bought a book called How to Make Your Wife Your Mistress.
Oh,
And I bought it because it had sex in it. Of course, it talked about sex, and I was a 16-year-old boy. But when I read that book, it basically made me understand what women needed out of sex.
okay.
I recommend every guy go buy that book and read it. How to Make Your Wife Your
Right.
Mistress. It's been
Mhm.
probably out of print for 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you were 16 years old.
mhm.
That was your would you say that that was one of your first impressions of what intimacy was in a
Yeah,
relationship?
yeah. My parents were very reserved when it came to sex. My first sex talk was them handing me a pamphlet that says your doctor talks to your 13-year-old.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so that's about the extent of the sexual education I got from my parents.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yeah.
back then we did have sex ed in school, but it wasn't, it was just the mechanics.
Yeah.
So, yes, I say that book was formulative to me to
That's
making me
wonderful.
understand what women really needed from sex. That's the problem we've got today in this day and age is men are being trained by porn that women are fancy masturbation toys
Right.
and women are craving intimacy and spiritual connection during lovemaking,
Yeah.
presence during lovemaking, and men are taught to perform during lovemaking.
Right. How do you feel when you have these conversations about intimacy with men who didn't have the same, maybe healthy first impression of what
Mhm.
intimacy is in a marriage? And maybe they have been raised on things like porn when it comes to what intimacy in a marriage is supposed to look like.
Right.
What is that experience like for you, and what kind of conversations are you having with men who maybe are just coming to this awakening now that even though logically they know that things like porn aren't a realistic representation of
Mhm.
what happens in a marriage, the fallout is just happening for them now?
That's one thing I've told my young guys, and believe it or not, I have dealt with hundreds of young men who have porn-induced erectile dysfunction. And so I try to get through to them that they don't understand that these girls in porn, they're paid very well to pretend that they're having the time of their lives, that they're having orgasms as soon as penetration happens, and to make freakishly unnatural noises while doing so.
Right.
So I tell them when you learn to make sex more about the spiritual connection than about the physical performance, that's when it becomes incredibly satisfying and creates a bond that'll last a lifetime and the kind of bond that you don't have to worry about your woman stepping out on you
Right.
because
Yeah.
you've made that connection with her spiritually.
You have heard around 60,000 stories now
Mhm.
from men around intimacy, physical and emotional. What would you say is the biggest thing that maybe women get wrong about what's happening inside a man's mind? Maybe when intimacy starts falling apart
Yeah.
and that connection isn't there the way that she perhaps is after.
One of the biggest frustrations I had in helping with these groups is over the 5 years, there's been hundreds of women who have come to the group, and their story was the same thing over and over again. Their man had developed ED, and he refused to go to the doctor and do anything about it. And so what he had done was completely withdrew into himself, refused to touch her, refused to kiss her, no cuddling, no emotional support. He basically abandoned her right inside the marriage. And so I originally saw that as a character flaw. And I always say there's no sexual desire without emotional system safety. So eventually, the nervous systems keep taking hits, hit after hit, and start feeling unsafe with each other. And in extreme cases, that's where you end up with a dead bedroom.
Yeah.
So now we look back to our guy that has withdrawn, and so he's in fight or flight. I mean, the second he lost that first direction, his primal brain says, dude, you're going to lose your wife. And so he thinks he's protecting the bond. And so she sees it as he has just abandoned her and is withdrawing into himself and leaving her to deal with everything by herself. Because again, he's concentrating now on being present during lovemaking instead of performing.
I'm curious, you have said in the past that shame rarely stays in the bedroom. Could you walk us through what actually happens inside a man once shame starts taking hold? How does it begin showing up, whether it's at dinner or parenting or work or conflict, even if nobody mentions intimacy?
I can't tell you how many men came into the group and said, I feel like less of a man. That's one thing I never felt. I never felt like it was a threat to my manhood. I saw it as a medical issue that I could deal with. But so many men will take that and internalize it as their erections don't work, therefore they're less of a man. And when you feel like that, that's going to carry into your daily, I mean, it's going to carry into your job, it's going to carry into everything you do. You're going to start seeing it through the lens of you're not being the man you used to be. And so, yeah, it can be devastating for men.
I'm just wondering, is there a thought or is there a behavior that really shows up outside of the bedroom that maybe men and women aren't realizing are linked to shame? Is it affecting the rest of the relationship?
Yeah, what shows up outside the bedroom is the fact that he's not as engaged as he
Mm.
used to be with her. He's more withdrawn, more reserved about everything he's doing because, again, he's feeling like he's less than a man.
Yeah. Are there some behaviors that maybe women often interpret as avoidance or not caring or even laziness that might actually be shame in disguise?
Oh, yeah, all of those that you just talked about, he's seeming like he doesn't care about the issue when it's really eating him alive inside. And
Mm.
again, that fight or flight mode, he's in full on flight mode a lot of the time because his primal brain is telling him, you're losing your woman. And the more she tries to get him to come out of that, the more he's thinking, you're losing your woman.
I would like to get a bit of a clearer picture of what she feels like she's doing that she thinks is helping, but that is actually affecting and deepening the shame instead.
Well, until she has met him where he's at with his nervous system, I mean, even trying to instigate sex can seem a threat to a man who's lost his erections. A lot of doctors call this performance anxiety because the second he loses that first erection, his nervous system is on high alert. And so the next time he goes to make love, instead of thinking about being present and enjoying himself, he's going, oh God, is it going to work? Is it going to work? Is it going to work? And so that creates the cortisol and the adrenaline that does kill the next erection. And so then the next time it's even worse. And so it's what I call the ED tailspin. And again, the only way he's going to get out of that, first of all, he needs to realize that what his primal brain is doing to himself, to it.
Yeah.
He's got to get educated that, yes, the primal brain is making me withdraw. And I can use my intellect to stop that and reach out to her.
Do you think that there's a story that women usually make up when intimacy disappears or when there are challenges around intimacy
Yeah.
that her partner is experiencing? So, what story do women usually make up when intimacy disappears or when there are challenges around ED?
Mhm.
And how often is that story actually wrong?
Right. The first two stories are number one is it must be me. He's not
Um,
attracted to me anymore. It's got to be me. And the second one, shortly after that, is he must be having an affair. So that's why he doesn't
mm,
want me anymore, is because he's got a side piece that he doesn't need me anymore. And usually, I'm sure in rare cases that's the truth, but I talk to so many men that were so frustrated because they desired the woman, they loved their women, and they just couldn't get Mr. Happy to cooperate with them.
At what point do you think being strong became the thing stopping men from getting help and getting curious and getting support around this?
That's always been the male trait, and especially in my generation, we were taught you don't cry. You keep a stiff upper lip. So it is ingrained into us by society. that our strength lies in our stoicism.
Yeah.
And it's one of the lies of society that men have to be strong all the time.
I agree. Yeah, I see that so much. And there's so much freedom in men having that aha moment of maybe being strong
Mhm,
isn't the one thing that's going to solve everything. People often throw around the phrase emotional safety.
mhm.
I'm curious, what do you think emotional safety looks like on some random Tuesday night after another disappointing attempt at intimacy?
Emotional safety looks like being each other's refuge from all the crazy in the world. The monument method was designed to prevent conflict and make quick return and to begin the healing of the emotional system to where emotional safety becomes possible. I've always said there's no sexual desire without emotional system safety. With the monument method, you stop the conflict, and as you practice it, and it does take practice because we seem to be wired to fight. And it takes practice keeping your sacred word of that the monument that takes practice.
Uh-huh.
But you pretty soon stop fighting because as soon as something is said that's going to start the fight, the other one's calling monument, you're coming together and repairing. But even the big fights that you used to be mad at each other for a day and a half, those are over in 5 minutes now because one or the other of us is realizing we need to protect our monument and coming back and repairing quickly.
So it's that awareness that this is a problem outside of themselves, not
Mhm.
necessarily in the relationship.
Right.
How much of ED is actually about desire and how much is about stress or the nervous system or shame?
Yeah. Well, again, that's a problem that a lot of doctors have is they'll say, well, yours is psychological or yours is physical. And it's rarely one or the other. It's usually a combination of both. I think the only purely psychological erectile dysfunction is caused by porn use. But again, the problem is that once you have a physical reason for losing an erection, you've had a really stressful day, your body's just full of cortisol and full of adrenaline, and the erection just isn't going to happen, then the performance anxiety kicks in. So you've got a combination of a physical reason and a mental reason. And so it's a combination of both.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you're talking to a woman who's listening to this, who's thinking, maybe we're too far gone, or this has created so many other issues in our relationship, and that maybe we can't find common ground here because ED may be a part of it, but there's so many other things going on now that ED has compounded those issues around. I'm wondering if you're talking to her,
Mhm.
what gives you hope that perhaps this is something that not only they can come back from, but that can be the thing that allows them to reset in the most powerful way. What would you share with her around what you've seen after hearing 60,000 stories?
First of all, I'm a hopeless romantic. I believe just about any relationship is not too far gone. But the biggest thing that a woman or man or the couple need to learn in those situations is they're not going to generally communicate their way out of it because when they're in fight or flight mode, there's no real communication going on. But when they can learn to regulate their nervous systems and get out of fight or flight mode, then the logical communication can start. There's no communication without, again, emotional system safety. You've got to get your nervous systems to stand down out of fight or flight before you can ever logically discuss what is wrong with your relationship. And generally, my feeling is even big things, once you learn to co regulate often and quickly and repair often and quickly, even the big things become small things. Heather and I have just become insanely one, and we still have our snippets and, and fights and stuff. But even the big things, we've gotten to the point that they're not worth damaging our monument over.
Do you feel like wrestling with shame and wrestling with issues about intimacy can be the doorway into a deeper relationship than many people even have the opportunity to experience.
Yeah, because the biggest enemy of the relationship is complacency. When you get to the point where you just don't care anymore, I think that's a bigger threat than when you're struggling. And so struggling will give you the impetus to go look for solutions and look for ways to come back together.
I love that. I think that's a beautiful reframe and reflection around even some of the most intimate and personal challenges
Mhm.
can be that invitation to experience something deeper in connection than even would have been possible
Mhm.
if you hadn't experienced this at all.
Yeah. I can't emphasize enough how important it is. You got to establish nervous system safety before you can ever communicate your way out of an issue.
Absolutely. So I had a few last questions for you, and I'd love to get your take on some of these. And starting off with, what do you think is one piece of relationship advice around sex that you completely disagree with?
That sex is what a relationship should be built on. Our society today is so driven to build relationships on chemistry. All the hookup sites and dating sites are just completely insane with swipe right, swipe left.
Yeah.
That's why we see so many relationships that end in that 6 month to 2 year romance phase because they're built on chemistry. And when that chemistry runs out, there's no structure underneath. I think
Yeah,
one of the biggest
absolutely.
mistakes that modern people are making is jumping into bed with each other quickly. And I'm guilty of it. I just fortunately had that background from the How to Make Your Wife Your Mistress book that let me
Yeah.
build the structure afterwards. Because when you jump into bed quickly with each other, the oxytocin and the dopamine and all the chemicals get flying around, and all of a sudden you're completely blind to red flags. And so
Right.
the red flags just get ignored until that dopamine and oxytocin wears off.
I completely agree with that. And I think it's such a beautiful opportunity. Intimacy and sex in a relationship is can be part of what makes it so special.
Yes.
And I think we've definitely lost track of the hierarchy of importance there when it comes to the strength and the safety of a relationship. I think having that safety to have these conversations is so important so we can create more intimacy. And I think there's definitely been a injustice done to so many men and women and couples around how chemistry should always be that driving,
Right.
deciding factor in a
Mhm.
relationship. What is something that women think helps that usually hurts?
This is going to be an off the wall answer, but deodorant.
Oh, okay. Give
I
me a very quick summary as to why.
Okay, I did a poll in my ED group. I told them just men answer. And so I said, what scent turns you on the most? Freshly showered got about 50%. And then after a long day, got 20, 30%. Um, After a hard workout, got another 20, 30%. Deodorant got a zero.
Oh, interesting.
So our modern health and beauty industry has convinced women that they should descent themselves when
Interesting.
when that scent is so important, especially as men age. Our sense of smell gets worse, and we start producing fewer pheromones, and women start producing so fewer pheromones. And so that's one of the things I believe is really important in as we age, that we maybe talk to our partner. What do you prefer?
How interesting. Just keeping that conversation open instead of making decisions based on intimacy or attraction from outside the
Mhm.
relationship.
Right.
What's something that men think protects them that actually slowly destroys connection?
Well, I think again that they think they're protecting the bond when they withdraw into themselves. Their primal brain definitely thinks it's protecting the bond, where it's actually leaving her feeling like she's been abandoned.
Right. Yeah, that's really powerful. What do you think is one sentence that every couple should stop saying?
It's your fault.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what happens is when both of the couples get into fight or flight mode, we're treating each other like the enemy. And the idea is you've got to start being a team.
Yeah,
You've got
absolutely.
to be a team and fiercely protect that monument.
Yeah, I love that. And what do you think is one sentence that every couple should start saying?
Well, he needs to start saying, "You're my treasure."
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and she needs to start trying to figure out ways to show him respect. The number
Right.
one thing that a woman needs in a relationship to be happy is to feel cherished. The number one thing a man needs in a relationship is to feel respected.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
too many couples make that, well, if you'll cherish me, I'll respect you. Or if you respect me, I'll cherish you. To make it work, each part of the couple needs to be the one to
Yeah.
sacrifice first.
Yeah. I hear you. And I think that really comes down to how we show up in relationships, not only when things are good, but when things are tough. And it's not for the benefit of the other person. Really, the way that we show up during conflict is a beautiful, loving reminder to our own nervous system that we can show up in alignment with our own values and that they're not negotiable, even when things are hard. And it's not even necessarily about the other person. But I think that that's a really good reminder about how powerful it is to show up for ourselves by walking in alignment with how we want others to treat us as well.
Yes.
What do you think is one thing about masculinity that you think we've misunderstood as a culture?
Definitely masculinity as a whole has taken a hit. I mean, the word toxic masculinity gets thrown around anytime a woman feels slightly slighted by a man. I've found it interesting that it seems like to me that women are naturally attracted to masculine men. And so they'll get with this masculine man, but because she's been told that masculinity is toxic, she immediately starts trying to detoxify him. And so that just causes all kinds of relationship issues. Is her going, you shouldn't be doing this, when it was that was what attracted her to him.
I love that. Something that we like to do on the podcast is ask guests to leave a question for the next podcast guest, not knowing who that guest is going to be.
Okay.
So the last podcast guest left a question for you. And that question is, when was the last time you had a beautiful connection with a stranger and made their day better?
I try to do that on a daily basis, especially even as busy as I am writing books and doing podcasts and trying to promote the Monument Method Institute. I still go on Facebook and look for chances to go in and encourage somebody who's having a rough time. And it was just today that I was in there telling people that the key to happiness was to learn to co-regulate with your spouse. And so, yeah, it's a daily thing for me. It all drives back to my heart transplant and wanting to pay it forward.
I love that. That's really beautiful. And I'm curious, if you were to leave a question for the next podcast guest, what would that question be?
What is the greatest gift this life has to offer?
And I would love to ask you, Gaylen, what is the greatest gift that life has to offer?
The greatest gift this life has to offer is a strong romantic, sexual, friendship, and spiritual relationship with one other human being that you become incredibly one with. And anything you're doing in your life that isn't serving that goal is going to leave you empty at the end of life.
I love that reflection around how important true connection really can be
Mhm.
in the gift of life that we've been given. Gaylen, it's been such a gift to have you on the
Well,
podcast and
thank
share
you.
your wisdom and your life lessons. I know that this is a stretchy topic and it can be one that can really push the edges of comfort, of safety, of identity. And I know that this is going to not only help many men feel seen and supported
Hmm.
and hopeful about the future, but many women as well. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing your journey, your story, and your wisdom with us. I'd love to hear, how can the audience find you and follow along and join in on your journey from now on?
Okay. MonumentMethodInstitute.com is my website. And I've got all my books are on Amazon. I've kind of given you the key to the house here. The way to build the house is in the Monument Method and the Monument Method 2, the Sanctuary Bond. The Monument Method teaches the couple how to stop conflict. The Sanctuary Bond teaches the couple how to become each other's refuge from all the crazy in the world.
I love that word refuge as well. I think that's really powerful.
It's really what we all desire deep down, is a relationship that is a refuge and not another battlefield.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gaylen. We'll make sure to pop your contact details in the show notes. And if you do have any questions or if anything has come up for you listening to this podcast and you do want to go a little bit deeper or extend the conversation, please feel free to reach out to Gaylen and also come and join us over on Instagram at Lauren_Dry. I'd love to hear what you loved about this episode and what you want to hear next. So please like, share, and subscribe, and share any of your biggest takeaways in the comments as well. I am so blessed to share this space with you, and thanks for joining us here at the Connection Podcast.